With YouTube attacking alternative media, please consider supporting the channel via Patreon for just $1 per month. Link below. One of the biggest and probably worst decisions that Disney has ever made regarding Star Wars, and I'm not referring to Rian Johnson writing and directing The Last Jedi, was giving the franchise over to EA, right? Or EA basically purchasing the rights to the franchise to make games on it. And, in 2015, we got Battlefront, which, the game wasn't great, but I still really liked it. 2017, we got Battlefront 2, nothing in between there. Nothing in between there. There was Star Wars 1313, a canceled project. There was the Visceral Star Wars game that was being headed up by Amy Hennig. That's been effectively moved to another company now. Amy Hennig has left the project. And everyone's kind of wondering what the hell is going on. What is EA up to? Well, they screwed up really bad with Battlefront. They understood this. They went back. They reformatted everything for Battlefront 2. And from a technical standpoint, they did a much better job. I love Battlefront 2, even with the crappy loot crate system. But a lot of people weren't really happy with the loot crate system, and they looked at it very, very, very negatively. Very negatively. And it caused a huge problem. It tanked EA's stock prices. It tanked game sales. The game sold, I think, 9 million, but not many of it was done through retail. And so that was a big point of contention too. And now we're kind of getting a bit more of the aftermath of this with this rumor that Disney and Lucasfilm Limited are talking with 2 new game publishers for Star Wars. Now, this could just be a falsity. This could just be a rumor that someone in the company put out in order to put the pressure on EA to get their shit together. Because right now, when it comes to this, they're not. So it says, if you're unhappy with the current state of Star Wars games from EA, you may not be the only one. Well, I'd say that is, at this point, probably the majority of people aren't happy. And we have the skinny on the 2 publishers Disney may be looking at to take over. It says here that Electronic Arts snagged the exclusive license deal to create and publish Star Wars games way back in 2013. And in the time since, EA has struggled with the property. The first game they announced and released was Star Wars Battlefront, suffered backlash with its lack of single-player campaign, launching with such little content that many became bored quickly. Subsequent DLC packs added a lot of great content, but by the end, everyone is waiting to see what happened next, which is true. And actually, by December 2016, you could have gotten the entire Ultimate Collection of Star Wars for I think I paid $16 for it, right? I just rebought the game for $16, which is cheaper than buying all the DLC because that had it all the way on there. And the DLC and the upgrades to Battlefront 1 a year later was fantastic. Again, making me think Battlefront 2 was going to be, let's learn from our mistake situation. I guess EA doesn't ever actually learn from their mistakes. So Battlefront 2 brought only more problems, despite making changes at the last minute. The launch was pretty rocky, and the whole debacle had brought a wave of attention down on loot boxes in gaming, with some governments looking to crack down on the practice, which is true. Hawaii is looking to crack down on it. Other governments have chimed in as saying that they're not too happy with it, and they're going to put restrictions on it. So this could be a way of absolutely ending this particular practice in gaming until the microtransactions are therefore replaced with something else that isn't really like a slot machine. Now, EA's latest financial statements have shown the impact with sales down and failing to meet expectations. But at the same time, to be on the other side of this, EA stock may have really significantly dipped as a result of Battlefront 2. It did, but it shot right back up a couple days later. So higher to where it was before it dipped. So, EA may have lost some money right then, but they quickly recovered. So that should tell you that ultimately the fight over this game did not have as much of an impact on EA financially as those of us who were not happy with how they did things would have liked, which again might be one of the reasons why this particular rumor is happening. Now, Star Wars is dominating the big screen, comics and novels once again, but it's lacking big time in the games department. While the constant stream of mobile titles have been decent enough, they don't quite scratch the surface or scratch the itch for many gamers. Originally, Lucasfilm went to EA because it was such a large company with many developers under their control, so they could potentially deliver more Star Wars games in a quicker amount of time. that never fucking happened. 5 games in only 5 years and 2 games in, with a couple of others barely announced, the investment isn't paying off like they wanted, which is true. Disney realizes that Star Wars, regardless of how bad the narrative structure was for The Last Jedi, still pulled in $1.3 billion, still made a lot of money. Solo is going to make a lot of money regardless of a lot of the crap surrounding it. I saw that trailer in IMAX last night, and that looked good. Just visuals alone has me in to see that movie. Anyway, they know it's going to make a lot of money. They know that the franchise has legs. They need a game to complement that. So maybe they do need to go someplace else. So it says Lucasfilm is upset and looking for other options. A couple sources have reached out about the current state of Star Wars gaming. According to them, Disney Lucasfilm Limited higher-ups have pulled EA into the principal's office to talk about what's going wrong. More so, they've apparently reached out to both Ubisoft and Activision about developing Star Wars games. Now, there's not much more information than that, but Ubisoft and Activision developing Star Wars games is an interesting concept because let's think of it like this for a second. Who would be the better developer for a Star Wars game, Ubisoft or Activision? Many people out there would probably sit there and think, if you're looking at it from a Battlefront perspective, well, shit, Activision, right? They know how to do it. They can maintain the servers. They can create games with at least decent single player stories, but have highly competitive and highly addictive multiplayer with Call of Duty. Imagine Call of Duty Star Wars. That's what you'd get with Activision, right? That could be something. That could be something very good, more fast-paced and fluid gameplay. DICE did a great job with Star Wars, but ultimately I feel like Battlefield 1 was the better of the three games released from 2015, 2016, and 2017. For some reason, Battlefield 1 felt more polished than Star Wars Battlefront 2. That is weird to me, given the fact that there was a year of development time in between and advancements in technology. Now, looking at Ubisoft, this would actually be my primary suggestion here. I'm serious. Ubisoft has the tendency of putting out a lot of content very, very quickly. All right. They've got, just at the end of 2016, they had Watch Dogs 2. They had a couple other games. There was like, was it the For Honor came out just after that. Steep came out. They had a few games come out very quickly. They can crank these games out. Assassin's Creed kind of went back to the drawing board, came back better than ever. They know how to advance their particular franchises along, as well as sequelizing them as fast as humanly possible. Look at the amount of love for Rainbow Six Siege. Imagine a Siege type game that was using Star Wars. That would be super interesting. Could also be kind of boring depending on how they did it. But the way that Ubisoft is able to tackle these kind of online titles with microtransactions and earning money on the side, which is what EA wanted to do with Battlefront 2 and loot boxes, could probably be better handled by Ubisoft. And of course, looking at the popularity for Mario plus Rabbids and that crossover and how well that did, it would also establish to Disney that they can handle this kind of cross promotion and hit this kind of licenses with respect. And that ultimately is what Disney is looking for. They want profitability and they want the money to come in. So yes, Ubisoft and Activision are both way better choices than EA. And my personal take would be Ubisoft as a better publisher and ultimately developer than Activision. Activision, I just really hate Bobby Kotick. I know I'm not alone in that, right? Like, you ask any COD player and they're like, hey, who at Activision do you hate the most? And they're going to be like, oh yeah, Kotick, man, fuck that guy. And there's that. So ultimately, I feel like this would be the better bet. Ultimately, I feel like leaving EA behind is going to be the right thing. Because if anything damages EA as a whole, I will be happy with that. And I feel that if, they want to tell these action-packed games, and having many of them come out, like one a year come out, there is no better developer and publisher right now than Ubisoft in that regard, and I think that's been reflective in sales and general lack of controversy. Yes. Ubisoft will make mistakes. Don't get me wrong. Their PC ports are garbage and they do need to work on that. From my understanding, Assassin's Creed Origins had very few problems with the PC launch. So obviously, they've had their issues. We'll never be able to unsee Assassin's Creed Unity. That's forever sketched into our minds. But since then, I do believe that they have learned. I believe that they have grown, and I believe that they can put out the better product. Activision, what else do they do outside of the Call of Duty games at this point? Right? Why would they ever? I mean, I don't know. I'm sure they do something, but I can't think of anything Activision does outside of Call of Duty. That interests me as a gamer. So I would argue that right now Activision's not even in the running, probably because why would they want to split their development teams? Because if you're going to get Star Wars, let's take a look at this for a second. If you're Activision and you want to get Star Wars, who are you going to put on it? Infinity Ward, Sledgehammer Games, Treyarch. Those are your top people. Like we know that Respawn Entertainment, the guys behind Titanfall 2. Which is an excellent shooter, are working on a Star Wars game, but that's not going to come out till like 2020, So if they do cut that and they do drop that, who could crank out a game the fastest? for a fall 2019 release, because they would need a winter 2019 release to coincide with the release of episode 9. Whether it's a Battlefront game or something else entirely, they need that. And right now, it doesn't even look like we're going to get anything coming out of EA that's even remotely going to give us a game that will be able to compete in that market in a couple of years. Unless it's Battlefront 3, which, knowing EA and knowing Disney, knowing the money EA spent for it, Disney will probably grant them Battlefront 3, hopefully with massive restrictions and, micromanagement out the ass.